Hello everyone, have a nice day, especially to our teachers. Today po, we will talk about an important topics and ethics. This is all about uh, the moral standard and non-moral standard. This topic is, uh, we explain what is the difference between the moral and non-moral standard. Yun. So before I proceed to my report, or we proceed to our lesson, I have one question that I want to ask. So this question is all about why they need to distinguish the moral standard from non-moral standard. So why we need to distinguish, why we need to know what is the difference between the two. So as an individual, it is important to note that society have different moral beliefs and that our beliefs are deeply influenced by our own cultures and contexts, right? So for this reason, some values do have moral implications, but some others they don't have. So yun. Let's consider the the example of the Muslim people while they are wearing yung damit na tago lahat ng kanilang balat sa katawan. 'Di ba? So, yun. So, different cultures have different moral standards, right? So, we believe that every group of people or every society or every countries, they have different cultures that they had. So, and also they have different moral standard from us. So, it depends on their cultures. So, katulad na lang sa atin dito, for example, uh, they have a lot of Baptist church, right? So, but every churches or every Baptist churches have different standard. While katulad lang sa pag-wear ng standard for wearing dress. So, they have a lot of difference. So, dito, our standard is we need to wear, as if you are girl, we need to wear skirt. Then, if the boys is, we need to wear a formal attire or formal dress like that. So, but in the other churches, they don't have a standard like that. But here, we have. So, it depends. It depends kung ano yung standard na meron sila. So, but, so what is a matter of moral indifference that is a matter of taste, and one cultures may be a matter of moral significance and another. So now, the danger here is that one culture may impose its own cultural standards on another, so which may result in a clash in cultural values and beliefs. So when this happens, as we may already know, violence and crime may ensue, such as religious violence and ethnic cleansing. So, yun, it depends kung anong paniniwala natin, kung ano yung culturals na we had. So, it depends on us. So, they have moral standards, so they have moral, we have different we have different cultures, so we have different moral standards. So, it depends on the cultures that you had in your society or in your country. So, yun. So, now, we will talk about how can we address this cultural conundrum. So, paano ba natin may address? So people have to understand the difference between moral standards and non-moral standards to identify fundamental ethical values that may guide our action. So, as an individual or as a person, this is where the importance of understanding. We need to know, or we need to understand what is the importance, the difference between the moral standard and non-moral standards comes in. So this issue may be too obvious and is insignificant from some people, but understanding the difference between the two may have far-reaching implications. For one, for one, once we once we have distinguished moral standard from non-moral standard, of course, through that aid of the principle and theories and ethics, we will be able to identify fundamental ethical values that may guide our actions. So, and then, once we know that particular values and beliefs are non-moral, we will be able to avoid running the risk of falling into the pit of cultural reductions or reductionism and the unnecessary impositions of one's own cultural standards on another. So, we need to understand what is the difference between the two standards. So, para pag nalaman natin or we already know the importance of each standards, we can easy to identify or distinguish what is standard or kung ano for example, uh, killing people or killing innocent person is absolutely wrong. So, yung situation na yun, if we if they asking you what is saan siya yung situation na siya saan siya makakabilang sa ito ba ay moral standard o non-moral standard. So, if you did not understand or if you didn't know what is the difference between the two, it's hard for you to identify that situation kung saan ba siya belong. So, we need to clarify or we need to know or understand para it is easy to distinguish the situation or the action that we had. So, yun po. So, the point here is that if such a standard are non-moral, so if such a standard are non-moral, then we don't have the right to impose them. So we don't have if the non-moral standards are so if non-moral standard we don't have the right to impose others. So but in another hand, if such standards are moral, such as not killing or harming people, then we may have the right to force others to act accordingly. So we may have the right to force the others. So, in this way, may be able to find a common moral ground, such as agreeing not to steal, lie, cheat, kill, harm, and deceive our fellow human being. So, we can see the difference between the two. So, pag non-moral standard, we have no right to impose on others. But pag sabing moral standard, force others to act accordingly. So, kailangan natin i-force yung other na umakto or umaksyon na sa tama. So, di ba? So, yun. So now we will proceed for what are moral standard and how do they difference how we different from non-moral standard. So moral standard are norms that individual or groups have about the kinds of actions believed to be morally right or wrong, as well as the values placed on what we believe to be morally good or morally bad. So, dito, moral standard therefore prescribe what the humans ought to do in terms of right and obligation. So, sabi nga, according to more scholars, moral standards are the sum of combined norms and values. So, in another hand, Pag pinagsama daw natin yung norms plus values, ang kakalabasan daw nun or equal ay moral standards. So, bakit kaya? So, when we say the word norms, we understood as general rules about our action or behavior. For example, we may say we are always under the obligation to fulfill our promise. So, di ba, it's generally according your action and behavior yun. So, o kaya ay, it is always believed that killing innocent people is absolutely wrong. So, yun yung sinasabi ng norms. But it comes of, in another hand, when we say values, we understood as ensuring belief or statement about what is good and desirable or not. So, parang malalaman natin dito kung yung bagay natin is tama or mali pag sinabing values. Kasi naniniwala tayo na kapag ginawa natin ito is tama. For example, uh, uh, helping the poor people is good. So, naniniwala ka na pag tumulong ka sa ibang tao, is mabuti yun. Then, or cheating during the examination is bad. So, pag sa values, pag naniniwala ka na, diba, you have a value. So, naniniwala ka na, kapag nag-cheat ka during the examination is a bad thing. So, kaya sinabi na, pag pinagsama mo ang norms, your behavior and action plus your belief equal moral standards. So, norms plus values equal moral standards. So, moral standards normally promote the good, that is the welfare and well-being of human as well as animals and the environment. So, you need ang moral standards daw is they promote the good. So, you need to be a good individual to other people, and not only in human being but also the animals that nakakita mo, dapat maging good ka din in a simple way. And also, sa ating environment din, sa simpleng bagay, sa simpleng way na makakatulong o makakabuti sa ating environment, kailangan din nating ipakita ang magandang gawa or kaya para ma-promote natin yung moral standard. So, sabi dito, according to many scholars, moral standard have the following characteristics. So, now we will talk about the characteristic of moral standards. So, we will talk about the 5 characteristics of moral standards. So, now, the first one is, moral standards deal with matters we think can seriously injure, benefit humans, animals, and environment. So, sabi dito, moral standards involve serious wrong or significant benefits. So, deals with matter which can seriously impact, that is injure or benefits human being. It is not the case with many non-moral standards. For instance, following or violating some basketball rules. That is, for example, may matter in basketball games but does not necessarily affect one's life or well-being. So that is what we say the first characteristic of moral standard. Then second one is moral standards not established or changed by the decision of authority. So, ended moral standard rest on the adequacy of the reason that are taken to support and justify them. For sure, we don't need a law to back up our moral conviction that killing innocent people is absolutely wrong. So dito sa pangalawang characteristic ng standard, so we don't need a law para para malaman kung yung ginawa mong pagpatay sa inosenteng tao is mali. So, alam na natin, yung moral conviction natin, alam na natin na kapag ginawa natin isang bagay, hindi na kailangan pang sabihin ng judge na mali yung ginawa mo. Alam mo na sa conviction mo pa lang, alam mo na mali yung ginawa mo. So, yun. Then, next characteristic is, next is moral standard. They take precedence over other standard and consideration, especially of self and interest. So, that is the third characteristic of moral standards. And then, fourth is moral standard are based on impartial consideration. So, if they say impartial, this is depicted as being fair of bias or prejudice. So, but impartiality and morality requires that we give equal and or adequate consideration to the interests of all concerned parties. So, here is we need to be fair. Walang nasa taas, walang nasa baba. Kailangan natin maging balanse. Kung mayaman ka, kung ang nagkasala ay yung mayaman, tapos yung kalaban ng mayaman ay mahirap. So, dapat kailangan ay kung ano yung tama, dapat yun yung gawin. So, wag kung porket mahirap, yun ang makukulong, samantalang siya na nga yung naapi. So, dapat pantay yung tingin, dapat fair, walang bias. So, yun. Then, lastly, characteristic of moral standard is, moral standard are associated with special emotion and vocabulary. So, this is the prescriptivity indicates the practical or action guiding nature of moral standards. So, these moral standards are generally put forth as injunction or imperative. So, the example here is do not kill, do no necessary harm, and love your neighbor. So, those principles are proposed for us for use to advise and to influence to action. So, kailangan natin is retroactively these features is used to evaluate our behavior, to assign praise and blame, and to produce feeling is satisfaction or of our guilt. So, yun po yung 5 characteristic of moral standard. So now, after we will talk the moral standard, so we will proceed the non-moral standard. So, when we say non-moral standard, it refers to standard by which we judge what is good or bad and right or wrong in a normal way. So, for example, standards of etiquette. So, when we say standard of etiquette, this which we judge the manners as good or bad. So, we judge the manners. So, di ba sabi ay, ang non-moral standard is we need to judge. So other example is standards, we will call the law. So, dito is, which we judge something as legal or illegal. So, kailangan dito is, we need to judge your action according the law. Yeah? So, standards the law, kailangan natin ng law kung yung ginawa mo, kung yung action na ginawa mo ay tama ba yun or mali. So, kailangan natin ng law. So, last is the standard of etiquette. So, pag sinabi natin standard of etiquette is which we judge art as good or rubbish. So, yun yung pag-judge, pag-etiquette naman, pag-standards of etiquette. So, hence, we should not confess morality with etiquette, law, aesthetics, or even with religion as we can see. So, now, non-moral standards are matter of taste or preference. Hence, these types of standard does not make one a moral person violations of said standards. Also does not pose any threat to human and well-being. So now, finally, before we will end this lesson, may this serve as an example of a way of distinguish. So, distinguish the two standard, the moral standard and non-moral standard. So, if a moral standard say, do not harm innocent people or don't steal. So, di ba nga, pag moral standard, we believe or based on the behavior and our action. So, they believe that if you harm innocent people, that is bad. So, if a non-moral standard say, don't text while driving or don't talk while the mouth is full. So, dito naman is, if we will judge you. So, do not text while driving. So, pag nagda-drive is not good na nagda-drive ka tapos nagte-text ka kasi they have possibility na may mabangga ka, may masagasaan ka or ano pa man. So, if that is the situation na makakabangga ka, so i-judge kung tama ba yung ginawa mo or mali ba yung ginawa mong pagte-text habang ikaw ay nagda-drive. So, yun. So, yun yung pagdi-distinguish natin sa two standard na mayroon tayo. So, hopefully you understand the moral standard and non-moral standard. Sorry po, and I hope na you understand. Thank you for listening. God bless po.